It's week 12 of the college football season, boys and girls. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's get the show on the road. This is when the stuff is really starting to matter. And while this is the annual late season cupcake week for much of the SEC, there are some monster games coming up this weekend, Carla. Especially in a conference that won't exist next year.
I know, right? It's unbelievable that that's where all the good games are this year, and we won't have it next year. No. And that just I still have not totally reckoned with that.
I don't think I'm. That's going to be a weird thing when we kick off next season. I don't think I mentioned that this is the Carla and Crappy show, and I am Carla. I am not Carla. I am Crappy.
You're not Carla.
I am not Carla. You are Carla. This is the Carla and Crappy show. We talk about college football. We're excited because it's halfway through November and rivalry week is next week, and there's stuff going on. There's Maction. I have OU on my phone thumping the Chippewas from Central Michigan. I am keeping track of Buffalo's attempt to upset Miami and help my Bobcats out on the desktop computer. And Carla, you and I have actual news to talk about that we wanted to get into a little bit before we started talking about last weekend or this weekend. I'm not sure when the firings actually began. I assume Sunday morning, but there were a lot of them, right?
There were, and some ones that were really worth noting. The first notice that I got was like Sunday at like 10 a.m. Central was when I started first hearing wind of like, oh God, here we go. Which a little early for all this stuff to be happening. Usually this kind of stuff kind of starts happening next week. But man, once they started, it was almost like somebody ripped the Band-Aid off and everybody went. Is really kind of what it felt like, you know, like one team says, okay, we're doing it. And everybody else says, oh, good, they did it. We're going to do it now too. Of course, the biggest firing of the weekend was quite obviously Penn State offensive coordinator, Mike Yurcich, right? At least that was the biggest firing in my book.
Sure.
And you know, and if you watch the Penn State offense against Ohio State and Michigan, you'll know exactly why he got fired. And that's all I'll say about that. But obviously, no, I'm being facetious here. The biggest firing of the weekend, this is the most bizarre situation that I've seen in a long time in college football, in that Texas A&M beat Mississippi State 51-10 on Saturday, and somehow both coaches lost their jobs the next day.
Yeah, I did. Jimbo had been on the hot seat at Texas A&M for so long, and everyone wondered just how that was going to go because he had a massive contract, and but there the cult in Texas A&M and the oil money, and it all came together to provide the university with a way out from Jimbo Fisher. So Jimbo could sit back and haul in $70 million in change over the next few years. So don't feel bad for him.
76.8. Yeah, no, it's 76. It's an outrageous $76.8 million buyout. Front Office Sports doing the hard work this weekend. They had some really excellent graphics about all this stuff. So Front Office Sports, that's more in buyout money than Jameis Winston, Jimbo's former quarterback at Florida State, has made in his entire NFL career.
Right.
It's a bigger buyout than the next four largest buyouts in college football history combined. He'll be paid more than $7 million every year until 2031 to not coach Texas A&M. And that just, you know, I'm floored by it. I mean, we talked about it and you're just like, would they really do it? Would they really do it with that buyout? And then the timing of it is just really weird to do it after a huge win. I don't know. Like, I don't get the timing of it either. I mean, the boosters must be even madder than we thought. for them to pull the plug after a huge win. I do want to talk about the other firing here, though, because this was not totally surprising.
Right.
The less than 1 year Zach Arnett experiment at Mississippi State. So Arnett was defensive coordinator and took over the team after the passing of Mike Leach. Mm-hmm. And the timing of that was the school was still searching for a new athletic director when they hired Arnett. So Arnett was kind of auditioning for his job a little bit this year, right? Yeah. They hired the new AD. His name is Zach Selman. And with Arnett not performing well, he's 1-6 in the SEC. They've lost 6 of their last 8. This was a reasonable time for Arnett to go. And not totally surprising because like that's the way athletic directors work. They want their guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was not totally surprising here. He might not really be Power 5 head coaching material quite yet. And I think we saw that this year. Right. He's still a damn good defensive coordinator. So let me throw this pitch out here. Psst. Hey, Lincoln Riley. Oh. You want to be competitive in the Big Ten next year? Pick up your phone. Call Zach Arnett. I'm not kidding. Do it.
I don't want him to go to USC.
It would take him a couple years to figure it all out. Because that defense is an absolute mess.
Yes. But yeah, seriously. It's a great point. That is a great point. He will. He has a reputation that he will have a soft landing someplace. And hopefully if he has designs on a head coaching job in the future, hopefully he will have an opportunity to do that. The thing about the opening in Starkville that was funny, Jamie Chadwell learned a lesson about Twitter's or X's location feature and why you should turn it off. Do you want to explain that one?
Yeah. So there was a screen grab of a tweet that Jamie Chadwell posted talking about how he was going to be appearing on Liberty's coaches show. Yeah. And that he was looking forward to seeing everybody the next day. The location tag on it said that he was in Starksville.
That's where Mississippi State is, right? That's
it is.
Yeah. So let's not be surprised if something happens and Jamie Chadwell leaves Liberty and ends up in the SEC. We will see how that goes. But I hope he's enjoying his pizza at the Mellow Mushroom while he fields phone calls from Liberty fans tonight, right now, or probably a little bit earlier. Actual news part 2, the cheating. You guys are aware by now that on Friday, actually, while the team was in the air flying to Pennsylvania, Michigan's head coach Jim Harbaugh was banned for the final 3 remaining games of the regular season. He can coach during the week. He cannot be on the sidelines. Cannot be in the building for games. And it's I just a few things about. And this is Michigan has thrown up so much deflection and subterfuge and sleight of hand. Look over here. Don't look at what we're doing. It has become difficult to recall what the actual problems, what the issues are here. First, sign stealing. Regardless of what the books at Michigan would tell you, sign stealing is not a violation of NCAA rules. Advanced in-person scouting is. That's what Michigan is accused of. That's what the NCAA is investigating, and that's what the NCAA told the conference. We can prove that they did it, and we have evidence that shows they did it. So we don't have a conclusion from the NCAA yet. That's going to come it'll probably be next year, to be honest. What happened with the conference, however, the Big Ten rules don't address sign stealing or advanced scouting. That's the NCAA's prevalence. But they do address the integrity of the game and sportsmanship. And that's what was cited by the conference as the problem when it suspended Jimmy before the day before the Penn State game. Michigan has made all kinds of claims. The other schools do it. The Big Ten doesn't have the authority to enforce its own rules. They have said just about everything you could say. Although, if you parse this carefully, I have yet to come across a thing where Michigan said, no, we did not do this. So, the conference responded. The NCAA has, as I said before, has evidence can prove the scheme existed. It of course dismissed the notion that it cannot enforce its own rules. And about the thing, there's a paragraph in the release that that the Big Ten released on Friday that I'm gonna read the whole thing, but this line, this addresses the notion that everyone does it. The conference vehemently rejects any defense by the University, Michigan, or any other conference member that cheating is acceptable because other teams do it. And that basically, that one line, that one paragraph, but that one line in particular just blows Michigan's arguments out of the water. Carla, obviously you were getting ready for a really big football game.
Yeah.
For the Nittany Lions. What did you think when you heard about Harbaugh being suspended? Is this the right thing to do? Does more need to happen? What were your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting because you've heard the debate as to why did the Big Ten do this in advance of the investigation by the NCAA not being completed. Mm-hmm. And my statement to that would be, the conference was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Mm-hmm. in this situation, because if you don't do something, you risk running the accusations that Michigan is flying out there that the conference doesn't have the authority to enforce its own rules. Mm-hmm. If you wait for the NCAA, what happens if Michigan goes out and wins a national title this year? Right. So that's the what do you do in that situation? And so the conference decided that they were going to pull the plug now. And there were going to be critics regardless of what they chose.
Sure.
Right. That was a no-win situation for the conference. I tend to believe, like what you brought up, the idea that the conference needed to take a stand here, and they had the authority to do that based on what you just read from that one paragraph, which I also thought that paragraph was pretty much like, yep, there's the shutdown paragraph.
Yeah.
So I had the same thoughts. They had to assert their authority as no. We're in charge here, not you. Mm-hmm. That was what the conference was doing there. The other thing that I'm kind of really tired of, and I hate the fact that this happened in Happy Valley of all places, was the way that Michigan handled itself after the win. Mm-hmm. Oh. Coaches were teary, sticking up for their coach. But if you haven't read it yet, and I will put a note in the Substack, I will put a link in the Substack when we publish this. If you haven't read Ari Wasserman's column at The Athletic yet,
yes.
It's a hell of a read. And he essentially says, Michigan, spare us your victim status. These wounds are self-inflicted. Mm-hmm. And the quote here that from the column, Moore acted as though, and Moore being the interim coach for, the acting coach for the game. Mm-hmm. Moore acted as though Harbaugh were in the hospital or dealing with some sort of tragedy outside of his control. No, Harbaugh was down the street from Beaver Stadium, sitting at the hotel watching the game on TV. Mm-hmm. So that goes all in line with that. So yeah, the conference did what they had to do. There's a hearing happening this week. That'll be really, really interesting to see how that all plays out. Allegedly, Harbaugh is going to attend the hearing.
And that's in county court in Ann Arbor. You would expect a fair amount of ties between the university and the bench in that county. In fact, the initial report I read, and I don't remember the name of the judge, but that judge was going to that the judge that was going to hear this is someone who actually lectures in Michigan's law school, and that got changed, I think, out of the incredible appearance of a conflict of interest. But still, that's going to be an interesting thing. And my assumption is that they will find sympathy in local courts, and then we will see what the conference does after that.
Yeah.
And this, keep in mind, this is that will be 1 week away from Ohio State, Michigan. So there is some significance to this.
Yep. Wait and see what happens.
We will wait and see what happens with that. And unfortunately, it's not something we will be able we'll be able to address in next week's show. But by that point, the football is going to matter more than anything else. Central has just scored, kind of at the beginning of the at the beginning of the fourth quarter. I think that's going to make the score 33-20. 33, is that right? Excuse me, 31-20. I had my little thing here was over the score. Did you? I assume you actually watched some football last weekend. What did you see that stood out?
Several things here. So I have some notes from the weekend that I compiled as I was watching on Saturday. So let's start with the new number one team in the nation. Georgia now looks like a team to be reckoned with. They absolutely dismantled Ole Miss. Mm-hmm. And flip-flopped with Ohio State as number one in the playoff rankings. Probably deservedly so. Mm-hmm. Based off of that particular performance. It was impressive, bigger than we both thought that game could potentially be close. Yeah. It wasn't in any way, shape, or form. Georgia came ready to play. And they're starting to look like the beast that nobody wants to play again. So here we go. Let's see what Georgia's going to do as we start winding down the season. Elsewhere, the top 10 teams that had to escape: Florida State, Washington, and Texas. All of those games were just a delight to watch. And they all came down to the very end. Speaking of being a delight, let's give a shout out to the Big 12. That just continues to be an absolute delight to watch, because we had UCF just absolutely pasting Oklahoma State and Orlando in probably the most unexpected score of the weekend. Mm-hmm. I think that was 45-7 or something like that.
It was really ugly and understandable given what Oklahoma State did the weekend before. That's the bowl game. That's the whole season. And they were absolutely coasting when they faced Central Florida.
It was just an absolute letdown game. Mm-hmm. It just absolutely bonkers. And then Texas Tech knocked off Kansas. Mm-hmm. That game was close, but also an unexpected win there. You probably already know my thoughts about Penn State, so I'm not even going to get into that.
Okay.
Although I will say this, you don't have to coach offensively, and this is why Jurkic is gone. You don't have to coach to the same level that your competition is playing, and that is what has always driven me nuts about this offense. Michigan ran the ball down Penn State's throat. They didn't throw a pass in the second half. Right. It was all running plays. That doesn't mean that the Penn State offense has to do the exact same thing. And that's what we saw. That's what we saw. It was kind of like the offensive staff going, okay, if that's the way you want to play, we can play that way too. Mm-hmm. No, stick with your game plan. Mm-hmm. Aller's playing well. Let him air the ball out. I watched most of that game. He didn't have a passing attempt longer than 20 yards in the entire freaking game. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there were opportunities there. So, okay, That's enough about that. Because I'll just keep ranting about that. And Jurkic is no longer there. So we will see what this offense looks like next week. Where I really want to draw attention to, though, is Mizzou's absolute dominance over Tennessee. And it comes largely at the hands of number 7 running back Cody Schrader. If you did not see his performance, this kid, he's got some of the best situational awareness I have seen in quite some time on the field. He had one play in particular, 10 seconds left in the first half. I don't remember if Tennessee had punted or whether they turned the ball over on downs, but Mizzou got the ball back, and you figured they were just going to kind of run out the clock, but they got some momentum going. Mm-hmm. There were 10 seconds left, and Mizzou was trying to get into field goal range. They handed the ball off to Schrader. He ran straight up the middle, put his team in more comfortable field goal range, could have kept running because there was a little bit more space. Instead, he gave himself up so that there were still 4 seconds on the clock. Mm-hmm. So that they were able to kick the field goal to get those extra 3 points. It's been a long time since I have seen a kid with that much wherewithal as to the situation that he was in the moment to just like flat out give himself up when he probably could have gained another 15 yards, but then would have risked running out of time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Mizzou kicked the field goal, took a 13-7 lead and never looked back. Schrader had 205 yards on the ground on 35 carries and led the team in receiving with a $116 on 5 catches. If I had the ability to give out helmet stickers, mine absolutely would go to this young man from St. Louis. Kudos to you, Cody Schrader. Hell of a game, hell of a win for your Tigers. And if you are an NFL team, Cody Schrader cannot be high on the draft list. He's just not that type of kid. I would consider taking a shot on this kid because if he understands those kinds of situations, he's going to do something for your team. Yeah. So kudos to you, Cody Schrader. Pay attention to him. And hey, his Mizzou Tigers, they skyrocketed up the playoff rankings this week. They're up in the top 10 now. So fun stuff.
As they should be. I saw most of Penn State, Michigan, little bits of Washington, Utah, and all of Ohio State, Michigan State. I share my skepticism, the skepticism of my Penn State friends about Penn State's offense. Obviously, that Penn State has done something to address that. And James Franklin's game management skills. There are things that I do not understand. There were things in our game as well that I do not understand, and I've been able to say that before. Maybe
why are you going for it on 4th down when there's 4 minutes left to play?
That's one. That would be one. The Huskies and Utes were as much as you expect that game to be entertaining. It was even more entertaining than I expected from what I saw. We were at a party and the. I think it was an interception or a fumble return, and the Washington defensive back spiked the ball before he got like 2 yards before he got to the he got to the end zone. Everyone in the party's like, "Hey, wait, you didn't! Hey!" And give credit to the offensive lineman for the Utes who hustled his fat butt down there and jumped on the ball. That was a smart play. And then for Ohio State, Michigan State, I will repeat my contention that Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best player in college football. And he's peaking right at the moment where Kyle McCord is feeling more comfortable, running the offense in the pocket, all of that stuff. I don't expect that Minnesota will have an answer for Marv in this weekend's game, and then we get to talk about next week. As part of our look back to a week ago, really interesting game for Drew Powell. Not so interesting for the Big Red Bears in Cornell. They lost at Dartmouth 30-14 in a game that it really didn't feel like they had a shot at getting in it. Part of the issue early in the second quarter, Cornell had a good drive going, and Drew had a red zone fumble. It looked like it was caused by a teammate, but for whatever the reason, he had a good carry. Was really just a couple yards short of the end zone, and dropped the ball. Couple possessions later, however, this is fantastic. And this is still part of the official stats. Drew has been credited with a touchdown pass, a 2-yard touchdown pass. We were watching the play, watching this with, I was in Columbus. We were watching this with my folks at home. And suddenly I realized Drew is in the shotgun, and he is standing behind the center. He takes a direct snap, pitches the ball, and I guess that was part of the forward pass part. Pitched the ball to quarterback Jamison Wong, who then handed the ball to a streaking Ian Pope on a reverse, who ran in for a touchdown. So Drew has, to his credit, with one more game left in his career, a 2-yard touchdown pass, which I think is the greatest thing ever. His other stats: 4 carries for 19 yards and a catch for 10. Cornell closes out its season, and Drew closes out his football career Saturday at home against Columbia, which is their big rival. That's the other New York State Ivy League school. Just briefly, I will say this: I could not be more proud of that kid. He wanted to play football, and he parlayed his love of the game into 4 more years as a player. And an Ivy League education. I think he has done very well for himself, and I hope he has a great day on Saturday. His folks and his brother and sister, his whole family is going to be in the stands in Ithaca to watch him play his final game. AJ gave us a warning when he submitted the After Dark report this week. He said, it's kind of lengthy, and perhaps I got excited about Pac-12 football. And Carla, you and I are going to talk about a couple Pac-12 games. So we understand this, but we're gonna let AJ go to town because he's got a big weekend coming, which means you guys should have a lot of stuff to pay attention to. AJ, go.
Hello, everyone. It is this week's Group of 5 After Dark report for week 12. This is for week 12. Last week I said it was week 10, and I was wrong. It's week 12 this time. We skipped week 11. Week 11 happened last week. This week is week 12. Next week, week 13. We'll get it right at some point, I'm sure. Friday, 10:30 p.m. on FS1, we have Colorado at Washington State. Now, I'm only saying you should watch this game because it's a Friday night and it's on at 10:30, and I will always put on for my After Dark games. These two teams are not the teams that they were in September. This is a very Maryland situation where they were really, really good in September and everybody was very, very hyped for these two teams. And now they're not that. Colorado is playing with on shreds at this point because they had no depth. And Washington State is just completely broken. Washington State has lost their last 6 games. They were 4-0. They beat Oregon State. They went into the bye, and then it literally all fell apart. And it hasn't even the Cal game last week, which I did tell you to watch, and I said it was going to be a banger because this is your one chance to really watch them, and it was great. It was a 42-39 game. You're welcome. But it's just been a tale of 2 seasons for them, and it has not gone well. I expect Colorado to go to Wazoo and win, which is a terrible thing to say, but I think Colorado has better skill talent to actually go beat Washington State. You should watch that game anyways. I will say, for those of you looking around at the big games with the big numbers next to them on Saturday, you're going to find that all of the cool games are not the games that ESPN or Fox would care for you to watch. That's why Big Noon Saturday is at Maryland, to watch Michigan at Maryland. That's a thing they're doing. There's so many other great Pac-12 games, and Fox is like, no, we're not going to do that. We don't want to go to Corvallis. We'll go to College Park, Maryland. Get wrecked, Fox. Anyways, it's SoCon Challenge Saturday, so if you're wondering what the SEC is doing, it's that. It's Sun Belt. They're playing a team from the Sun Belt or the SoCon, one or the other. But at noon, I just want to put some eyes, if you can, on ABC. We have Louisville at Miami. Miami is not a completely broken team or a dumpster fire or anything you'd like to call them. They're just there. They hung with Florida State. They had a couple of moments where they could have maybe won that game, and they didn't. I can't tell if Louisville is good or if they are fraudulent. I can't tell. And their best win is beating Notre Dame, which has not aged entirely all that well. I don't know what Louisville is. They're knocking on the door of the ACC championship game, and Miami might be the thing that slams it in their face. Just keep an eye on that game. Louisville's only favored by 1. Also at noon, Oklahoma at BYU. This is a conference game, LOL, but I want you to consider something. This is at BYU, which means this game is a 10 a.m. local kick. The Mormons will be up. They'll be fine. I don't know about the Sooners, man. I don't know. This is a 10 a.m. kick. They're going to have to do like pregame meal at 5 in the morning or some nonsense. All I'm saying is just, keep some eyes on this game, just because who's to say what could happen? This one's on ESPN. Oklahoma's favored by 24, and I feel like the time change is going to be weird for this, especially given the fact that it's being played at an odd hour, that early in the morning. Also at noon on ESPN2, so just one channel forward on your channel guide, we have SMU at Memphis. These two teams are 8-2, and they are both going to score 1 gazillion points. The fun index on this game is 67. And I highly recommend you put your eyeballs on this game because it's going to be bananas. The ball will go back and forth. These two teams know how to score a ton of points, and they're not really sure how to not have the other team do that. So that one should just be fun. You should just put that game on. I will definitely be watching that one. At 2 p.m., my beloved Bows travel to Laramie, Wyoming. This is on the Team One Sports app. Again, go download the app. You can watch the game. Text the link to yourself. You can watch it on a web browser of your choosing, as long as you were on the mainland. If you were in Hawaii, it costs $450 to watch these games for the season. I'm just pointing that out. This has a trophy. I'm now blanking on the name of the trophy, but it does have a trophy. This is a trophy game between Hawaii and Wyoming. Wyoming has lost it. They've lost the plot. They are just not the same. I thought they would keep it pretty close, if not beat UNLV, and UNLV boat race them. We'll get to UNLV in a moment, but this game could be kind of fun. I don't know. Go Bows, come to the mainland, win a football game. We would love to see that. Also at 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus, we have App State at James Madison. This is an old school FCS rivalry, and App State seems to be revving it up just a skosh. They've won their last 3 games and their last 2 convincingly. This is a banger of a game. You should absolutely put this on some screen that you have. JMU is really good. App State's revving it up. Can App State put a dent in the crown of the Dukes? Maybe, maybe not. We have at 2:30 p.m. on the Pac-12 network, and I highly recommend that you find yourself a VPN, because next week we are going to talk about the last game ever on the Pac-12 network, and it is the funniest thing ever. Don't look it up. I want to surprise you. But this week we have number 18 Utah at number 21 Arizona. That's right. 2 ranked teams, 2 good teams actually. They're both 7-3 on the Pac-12 network. Great work, everybody. No one's going to see this game, and it should be really, really good. Arizona is super good. They are super fun to watch. They are very bowl eligible. This is starting to creep into Alamo Bowl territory. You should absolutely figure out a way to watch this football game. Yeah, find the Pac-12 network. Vegas has this as a pick'em. That's how close Vegas. Vegas can't even figure out who's going to win this game. It's going to be super good. You should watch this game. We have to cover the CW game of the week, which this week is Duke at Virginia at 3 p.m. on the CW. Duke with a heartbreaker. They should have won. I don't know how much of a pick the controversial call was where they gave the ball to UNC, even though it was a contested catch. I could see it going both ways. I'm not really going to go deep into that one. But Duke losing a heartbreaker with their backup quarterback going shot for shot with Drake May was pretty great. UVA, they seem to just be keeping it positive. They're 2-8. They're not good. But Tony Elliott seems to have these guys fired up to play football. I hope this goes well. I hope that Paris Brooks, the running back who got hurt really, really badly last week against Louisville, I hope that he recovers well. He had to have spinal surgery because he was basically knocked completely out and was paralyzed at one point. He's moving, so that's great to see. But UVA needs a good one. Duke, you're bowl eligible. Just take an L for UVA here, please. Thank you. We cruise on down to 3:30 p.m. I just want to point this game out just for me. On the ACC network, we have NC State at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's favored by 2.5, and I was like, that's weird. NC State's not that bad. They're 7-3. They're well on their way to 8-4 as always. what the heck is happening here? And then I remembered they're not playing on the CW, so their powers are no good here. NC State is 7-3. They're 4-0 on the CW. Their powers are no good on the ACC network. So, sure, give me Virginia Tech to win there. On FS1, we have Illinois at Iowa. The over-under is 30.5. Hammer this under. Hammer it. This is a lock. Brian Ferentz has been fired. He's not going to hit his charity drive, which is sad. He was going to go to Jamboree or whatever. But there's no points in this game. Iowa, though, I do want to point out, Iowa had 400 yards of offense last week, and they scored 22 points. And they shut out Rutgers. And there were a lot of people who were like, Rutgers could literally win this football game. No, they didn't. Iowa went, wait a minute, hold the heck up. We could choose to score points if we want to. And that's, I think, the more annoying part to me personally. That's an attack on me personally, as far as I'm concerned. Hate that. You know what else is happening at 3:30 p.m. and it'll be on ABC? We have UCLA at USC, and I had this game circled a month ago, of like, okay, USC is probably going to be really, really good coming into this game. UCLA's got like a real tough defense, and it's all gone wrong. Alex Grinch has been fired. So you can't blame him for the defense, although you can blame him for the defense. He recruited dudes who can't tackle. But this isn't going to be good. Caleb Williams is still amazing. There were a number of throws against Oregon where it's like, how did you do that? Literally, how did you do that? There was one where he's like scrambling around because Oregon was trying to kill him. They weren't just trying to tackle him, they were trying to kill him. And he like scrambles out, he's rolling towards the sidelines and effectively does the toe drag that a receiver does to like try to catch the ball but keep the toes in bounds. He basically does this on a throw where he like plants his foot 3 blades of grass away from the sideline, throws it across his body, and turns it into like a 6-yard gain. Like completely unfathomable how this man plays football. And he has to do that because there's no defense. And his offensive line does not like him, apparently. I can't tell otherwise why they're that bad. So, you should watch this game. It'll be on ABC, and there's going to be 1 billion points. And it's going to be up against Georgia, Tennessee, which will be over by, midway through the second quarter. So do that. Also at 3:30 p.m., though, on CBS Sports Network, the Network of Champions, we have a preview of a championship game because we have UNLV at Air Force. This is a Mountain West Championship preview. UNLV controls their destiny. These two teams are currently 1-2 for the Mountain West Championship. I did not have that on my dance card at the beginning of the season. UNLV is good. They are capital G good. Air Force lost to Hawaii. All right? Now, my beloved Bows appreciate the W. Appreciate you coming out to the islands. But Air Force, I know that your whole thing is that you have a thing in the plane and then you drop it. But when you're playing football, that's not what you do. You need to hold on to that as long as possible until it is safe to not have it in your hands anymore. So Air Force needs to stop turning the ball over. They had 5 turnovers against Army, and I believe they had something like 3 or 4 against Hawaii. Like, they did not turn the ball over in any way, shape, or form. And then, they had 4 turnovers last week against Hawaii. So that's why Hawaii won. It was great to see, by the way, just watching the Bows win real late. But just throwing this out there, this could be spicy if Air Force continues to drop bombs like that. 4 p.m. on Fox. We have number 6 Oregon at Arizona State. If you've been following this program or you've been following college football over the last, decade, you know that Oregon going to Arizona is fraught with peril. The state of Arizona, not Arizona the school or Arizona State the school, the state of Arizona. It does not end well for them. R.I.P. Dennis Dixon's leg and his Heisman candidacy and their national championship dreams that one season. I think it was like 09. This is not a game that Oregon likes. They do not like going here. And I think they're very happy to go to the Big Ten and never have to go to Arizona again. You get to go to Rutgers, but you don't have to go to Arizona anymore. Oregon's favored by 24. It'll be a lot closer than that. Arizona State is a bunch of ankle biters. Cam Scatabo, Bourget, and Beaver, their skill players on their offense are super fun. Kenny Dillingham is coaching like a madman, and if he gets any kind of depth, Arizona State's going to be a problem in the Big 12. I still see Oregon winning, and they are a tough football team right now, and probably are going to go to the Pac-12 championship. But this is a game you don't want. You just beat the brakes off of USC. You're like a game. You're looking ahead to the Civil War against a very good Oregon State team. This is a game where you look ahead and they take your ankle off. Just throwing that out there. We have 2 bowl-eligible bowls. We have UCF at Texas Tech and Marshall at South Al. Those are both at 5 p.m. Just, keep an eye on those games. One of those teams is going to win and get bowl eligible. That's fun. Just, this is the season that we're in. Teams are fighting for their last shots at bowl eligibility right before rivalry week. So just kind of keep that in mind. Cal Stanford is on the Pac-12 network at 6:30 p.m. Just, hey, one of your big rivalries that these two fan bases love. They put that on the network that this is in San Francisco. I'm pretty sure those folks get the Pac-12 network. So that might just be for them. It's like a local game. It's like when they play like a rivalry game on like a regional network, it's just for them. Farmageddon. Or no, is it Farmageddon? Is Kansas State at Kansas Farmageddon? Carly Crappy, correct me on that one. Kansas State at Kansas. Kansas was down to their third string quarterback. This might not end well for Kansas. Kansas State's favored by a touchdown, but it's a rivalry game. Old records, off the shelf, things of that nature. 7:30 p.m. And I'm mad about this because this is Pac-12 banger week where all of their games are starting to get really, really good, like UCLA, USC, Utah, Arizona, Washington, Oregon State. And that meant that all of the networks wanted to put these games on television or the Pac-12 network. It's not the same. But they wanted to put these games on where as many people as possible could see them, which means the late slate is bad this week. Really, really bad. But Washington and Oregon State is nationally televised at 7:30, so everybody gets to see Corvallis go crazy. I love that. Hey, Washington, watch out for the chainsaws. Just throwing that out there. Washington, still a very good football team, still has a crazy good offense. This might be one of those games where it gets a lot spicier than you'd like it to be. Just throwing that out there. Just, for friends. Don't drop the ball at the 2-yard line either. Oregon State will make you pay for that nonsense. If you did not see that, go back and look up the highlight of the Washington fumble recovery. Where they picked it up 78 yards from the goal line and then ran it 76 yards. And the guy, thinking he was cool, Deshaun Jackson, and dropped the ball at the 2-yard line and ran in the end zone and was celebrating, and all his teammates went and celebrated with him. But one Utah lineman realized that he dropped it at the 2 and fell on the ball. It was amazing. Washington got a safety on the very next play. So it's not like it was a complete loss, but, just throwing that out there. That's a game you should absolutely watch. You should definitely watch that over pretty much everything else in the 7:30 slot. Florida, Missouri, don't watch that game. Nebraska, Wisconsin, do not watch that game. Syracuse, Georgia Tech, don't watch that game. Texas, Iowa State, maybe spicy. Texas has been doing a lot of messing around, not a lot of finding out. And they're going to play a night game in Ames. This does not usually go well for them. Throwing that out there. That's on Fox. Let's see how they handle that. Your late slate is New Mexico at Fresno State. Fresno got absolutely boat raced by San Jose State. I don't know what happened. Fresno just could not get it together, and San Jose State was hitting everything. It was kind of great. Congratulations to the Spartans for winning the Valley Trophy. Hey, Fresno, maybe you get it back together get a get-right game against New Mexico State here before you go and play at San Diego State, who fired their head coach for being bad at his job. Speaking of San Diego State, we have San Bowl, San Diego State at San Jose State. San Jose State's favored by 2 touchdowns, as rightfully should. San Diego State is a not good football team. They've not won a game comfortably. I don't expect that to happen this time. Both of those games are at 10:30. You could go to bed early, unless you're on some real sicko nonsense like me, because ESPN, the reason they don't have a late game is because there's an F1 race in Las Vegas this weekend, and so I will be staying up for that. The race starts at 10 p.m. Vegas time, which is 1 a.m. Eastern time, which means I'm staying up very late to watch cars go zoom down the strip. My favorite part of this is that no one in F1, and I'm sorry for the racing sidebar, but this is funny. Apparently no one in F1 looked up what happens in the desert in the fall, and it gets cold. And so this has the potential to be one of the coldest F1 races ever, and it's kind of important for the tires to be warm for grip purposes, and there might be some slidey action on the strip. I'm just saying this might be worth staying up for. I'm not saying you have to caffeinate. I'm just saying there's a reason if you wanted to. This has been your Group of 5 After Dark report. This has been a long one. I gave you a short one last week. Back to you, Carla and Crappy.
Thank you, AJ. It's going to be a crazy weekend, and we are looking forward to it. Brief update: Miami has scored again to take a 20-10 lead over the Buffalo Bulls. Need some help here, Buffalo. Let's go. There's still 9 minutes left. Plenty of time. 2 touchdowns. Piece of cake. Carla, we have yes. Games. Excuse me. Starting at 2:30 on Saturday, on the elusive and mysterious Pac-12 network. If you want to watch this, the Pac-12 network is on Fubo, so maybe do the thing where you get a week long, get a 1 week trial and see how it goes. If you want to watch number 22 Utah at number 17 Arizona. Arizona is favored by 1. The AJ Fund Index is a 44.5 points. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, like you mentioned, I think this might be one of the best games of the day, and of course it's on the Pac-12 network, which means hardly anybody is going to see it.
Right.
Utah gave Washington a hell of a game last weekend.
Yes.
They led at the half. They forced the Huskies to actually rely on their defense. And now they have to go to Tucson to play the team that absolutely nobody wants to play right now.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona's won 4 straight, including multiple wins over ranked opponents, and they're averaging nearly 100 yards more per game in total offense than the Utes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a key here. This Utes team has been through an absolutely brutal stretch. They played USC, Oregon, and Washington in 3 of the last 4 weeks. Combine that with the fact that even though we talk a lot about Utah's defense, statistically, these teams are nearly even on the defensive side of the ball. And that kind of blew my mind when I looked at that. Because we tout Utah's defense, and their defense is good, and it's kept them in games, and it's put them at the brink of winning games. Arizona's defense potentially just as good. Arizona has momentum right now. I'm taking the Cats at home here. Mm-hmm. I just think Utah's beat up. Utah is tired. If they had their full offensive firepower for the season, gosh, I really wish we would have seen this Utah team with a real offense.
Yeah.
Because I think they could have been a national title contender. Mm-hmm. Had they had their full offensive weapons on display. But instead, I think this Utah team is tired. I think this Arizona team is out to prove that the beginning of the season was a fluke. Arizona wins this game at home, which should be a hell of a good game that absolutely nobody will see.
Yeah. As you mentioned, if there is like I don't want to use the term second tier, but I guess that's the best way to describe this. There's a second tier Power 5 school that I would not want to have anything to do with at this point of the season. It is Arizona. The Cats can score, as seen, in the shootout win that they had at Colorado last week. They can play defense. The week before that, they held UCLA to they held a Chip Kelly offense to 270 total yards in a 27-10 win. Bryson Barnes, Utah's quarterback and everyone's favorite pig farmer, has been a great story as he fills in for Cam Rising. And I'm with you. I would have loved to see what Utah would have been able to accomplish with Rising at quarterback. but I expect Arizona to finish out the season strong, starting with this game. Absolutely, that's going to be. Yeah,
you bring up a really good point that I hadn't thought of until you said this about being the team that nobody wants to play right now.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona is playing the role of South Carolina from last year. Remember how South Carolina got super hot at the end of the year and absolutely nobody wanted to play the Gamecocks?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what Arizona is. The problem is they're on the West Coast and nobody is paying attention to them. Arizona is this year's South Carolina.
And they don't have a contract to be on CBS. It is a shame. I happened to watch the end of the Arizona USC game, which was an overtime loss. And so they've been sort of on my radar. I just happened to wake up in the middle of a night and check my phone and saw, oh, wait, this is a game that I should check in on. So, I think it's an Arizona win this weekend. I don't have the schedule up in front of me. I assume they have Arizona State next week, which should not be a tough game for them at all. At 3:30 on CBS, number 1 Georgia at number 18 Tennessee. Georgia is favored by 10. The AJ Fun Index is a 58.5 number. Carla, what do you think?
Yeah, I mentioned this, in recap from last weekend. Georgia is hitting beast mode at just the right time when nobody else in the country wants to see it, right? I mean, like I mentioned, they absolutely demolished Ole Miss. And I said last week that Ole Miss was the biggest remaining test on the schedule for Georgia up until the SEC title game. And I still believe that to be true. Yes, this game is at Neyland, but this Vols team is a hot mess right now. Joe Milton just looked absolutely rattled and confused in Columbia. And while, yes, Mizzou's defense is good, it's not Georgia good, right? Now, let's give the Vols some credit here. Like, if Jalen Wright can get going on the ground, I think Tennessee can keep this interesting for a half.
Okay.
But everything to me, this game is all Georgia. I'm taking the Dogs on the road here and maybe even to cover.
Okay. My rhetorical question that starts my notes: can Tennessee win this game at home? I mean, on paper, yes, but no. The answer is no. Brock Bowers is back. Carson Beck looks as good as he has all season. Georgia's defense, while it's not the lights out unit from a year ago, has more than enough to keep the Volunteers, who, as you mentioned, appear to be struggling, on the ropes. So Georgia is going to win this one. They have a final regular season game against Georgia Tech, which has been pesky this year, but not that pesky. And then a date with Alabama in the SEC title game. At 7 p.m. on FS1, number 21, Carly, here you go. Your Power Cats. 21 K-State at number 25 Kansas. State is favored by 7.5. The AJ Fun Index is 56.5. How will the Power Cats do in the rivalry game on the road?
It's a Sunflower Showdown. Here we go. First rivalry game. That is actually what this game is called. It's a Sunflower Showdown. Like I mentioned earlier, Jayhawks were absolutely stunned by Texas Tech last weekend. This is a Kansas team that's been in a boatload of close games all year. Even the games that they've won, they've been really close. Kansas State, on the other hand, if you go back and look at their results from this season, they've put up a ton of points, which is not something that we're used to seeing out of a K-State team.
Yes.
Other than nearly upsetting Texas a couple weeks back, the Power Cats have absolutely blown out their opponents. And those opponents include Texas Tech, TCU, Houston, and Baylor. These are not just like sub-tier teams, although, you might argue Baylor's not Baylor that we used to remember, but
correct.
Their only losses this season are to Texas in overtime, Mizzou by 3 back in September, and that loss is suddenly looking really good, and Oklahoma State by a single score. Their quarterback, Will Howard, has 2,100 yards on the season. I think this is an underrated Power Cats team, and this is a team that you don't want to play right now. Not as much as Arizona, but I'm going to take K-State on the road here in the rivalry game. I just think they've got too much momentum going right now, too much offense. Kansas is reeling a bit after that stunning loss last weekend.
Yeah.
Go Power Cats. Let's do this.
And
you were like making really funny faces while I was trying to say that. So I want to hear what's happening.
There was it is not football related. There was a This is SportsCenter commercial where a couple guys from Vegas were putting the Stanley Cup in a dishwasher. I don't have the sound on, so I don't know what Steve Levy was in there, of course. He's the hockey guy. Yeah. So that's
Bucci in there.
He was not.
He was not.
He was not in that. He was not in this one. The Bobcats have the ball with 9 minutes left in the game, and a 31-20 lead. Miami has the ball 3rd and goal with a 20-10 lead. They went for it on 4th and 1, just a couple plays ago to extend this drive. A touchdown would probably put this out of the way. Which means I have to rely on Ball State, last place in the West, to beat Miami and give OU a hand to get to the title game. But fingers crossed, as always. It's interesting the parallels here between Kansas State and how the seasons have progressed for Arizona and Georgia. They are absolutely closing out the season strong. As Arizona and Georgia appear to be, even with the overtime loss in Oklahoma 2 weeks ago, 59 points on Baylor a week ago, shut out Houston 41-0, buried TCU the weekend before that. I think that was 41-3. That's a pretty good month,
Yeah.
And that is a game in Oklahoma that they could have won. Kansas has been a great story. We are officially fans of Kansas and the Jayhawks here on the Carla and Crappy Show. So it's great to see them have the kind of season they've had. But this is going to be.
And we're not stressing out. And we're not stressing out over them being bowl eligible this year. Because remember last year they had a hell of a season. We were running behind them. And we were like, yes, and they had to like eke one out in the last week of the season.
One more.
Yeah, they're bowl eligible already. So Jayhawks, congratulations. We're not stressing out over the end of the season. Go bowl.
We will not. But this is not a game that they are going to win at home. Kansas State's going to pull out the sunflower challenge. What did you say?
Sunflower Showdown.
Sunflower Showdown. That's much better than challenge, so that's good. And then at 7:30 on ABC, you don't have to hunt down the Pac-12 network for this one. Number 5, Washington at number 11, Oregon State. The Beavers, boys and girls, are favored by 2.5 points. The AJ Fun Index is a truly fun 63.5. How's this one going to go, Carla?
So you said it's a good thing we don't, happily we don't have to hunt down the Pac-12 network.
Right.
Also, happily we don't have to stay up after dark for this game because this was in the primetime window. Thank you very much, because this is going to be a game that you are not going to want to miss. This is Michael Penix Jr. versus DJU.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 pass defenses that are average, not great, that explains the fun index, right? But here's where I think this game gets interesting, and that's why Oregon State is favored in Vegas for this game. It's not with the 2 quarterbacks, even though that's what's going to get everybody's attention on this game. Mm-hmm. It's with Oregon State running back Damian Martinez and that Beaver rushing attack.
Yes.
Martinez has more than 1,000 yards on the ground this season, and Washington is giving up more than 140 yards per game on the ground. Now, Washington's defense has come up big twice this season in huge games against Oregon and Utah. We've seen that defense, which isn't spectacular. It's good, but we've seen moments of brilliance out of that in key situations from Washington. Can it step up again against Oregon State and shut down their running attack? That's going to be what I'm going to be really interested in watching here. Factor that in with the game is in Corvallis. Mm-hmm. It'll be dark by the time the game ends.
It will.
The Huskies absolutely have to be ready to play in this game. I really, 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 really want to go with the line and pick Oregon State at home here.
Okay.
Because that just feels like what the Pac-12 would give us this year, right? That feels like that's what Pac-12 would do. But I think Washington has something really special going this season.
Okay.
You get those teams that just kind of have that feeling that like they're destined to do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To me, out of all of the teams in the top 6 right now in the college football playoff rankings, that team to me is Washington.
Okay.
It just feels like this is a team that is going to be reckoned with. It's going to figure out a way to get into the playoff. And I think they're going to pull a rabbit out of their hats and find a way to win this game. I have no statistical, no analytical background to say, here's why they're going to do it. Here's how they're going to do it. It just feels like they're going to do it, which explains a lot about Washington this year.
Mm-hmm.
Because same thing, didn't expect them to beat Oregon, and they figured out a way to do it. They probably shouldn't have beaten Utah, and they figured out a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I just think this team has it this year. They've got the medal. They've got the karma behind them. Huskies win this game in what should be the best game of the day.
Ooh, okay. If you are as we both know plenty of college football fans do this. If you're rooting for chaos in the Pac-12, you are so stoked for this game. You know about Washington's offense. They're now averaging over 500 yards of offense a game. But the Oregon State, the Reser Stadium does not have the reputation that Oregon, that Outson does. But it is a tough place to play. This will be a pseudo night game, and the Beavers have DJU, who is finally playing like the guy we were told he could be. The variable here, and this has come up in our discussions before. With Bedlam, most recently, the motivation on the part of the players who have been scorned, and this is the Beavers. I think that is these teams are pretty evenly matched. I don't disagree with you about Washington and the feeling of the team of destiny. But I think the stuff that has come about with realignment, particularly in this conference, I think that's an edge that will put the Beavers over the top. And I think they win this game at home. Boys and girls, you can hear the Carla and Crappy Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and a variety of other podcasting hosts. You can watch us on YouTube and on the show's Facebook page. And for the first look, if you haven't subscribed to the Substack yet, why not? Well, I mean, you get everything. You get the show notes, you get the links, you get audio feed, you get video feed. It is all right there. So just go
one-stop shopping.
One-stop shopping. So if you like us,
free.
It is. It's free. We're not. We don't have the delusions that we can charge people for this yet. If you like us, please subscribe, as I just mentioned. Rate and review, and if you don't mind your own damn business, but of course you do, so go subscribe. Come on. Be sure to come back next week to see number one, how wrong we were, and number two, because holy crap, because it's rivalry week. Buffalo just hit an 80-yard touchdown pass to cut the lead. To the score is a Miami 23, Buffalo 16. Just under 3 minutes left in the game. So gotta love some action. That is fantastic. Same as the score is the same for OU. This game is 8 minutes left. And I suspect that OU will be able to handle this very, very easily from here on out. Carla, do you have any final thoughts?
So if you look at the full rundown for this week, there are lots of cupcakes on schedules this week because, we're 1 week ahead of all the big rivalry games this weekend. But here are 2 games that I have on my radar. Yes. Obviously, the first one is my Middle. Huge win last week against FIU at home. Middle Tennessee closes out their home schedule this week against UTEP. That game is at 2:00 on ESPN Plus. It's senior day. Middle is favored in this game. Middle, go out and get yourselves a win at home.
Nice.
To close out the home season.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the second game is when Georgia Tennessee gets boring. because let's be honest, it's going to flip over to UCLA at USC. That game's at 3:30 Eastern on ABC. The fun index on that game is 65.5.
Holy crap.
That game is that game is basically meaningless,
right?
Except for the fact it's a rivalry game in the Coliseum, and that's always fun to watch. But like, let's be real. Georgia Tennessee is going to get real boring in the second half when Georgia's just running it down the field. Like, go to ABC, go watch some stupid football, get yourself ready for the night slate, which is going to be really fun. So yeah, UCLA, USC, go check that game out in the afternoon.
I will probably put that game on the second TV because Ohio State plays Minnesota at 4, so there's an overlap there. But yeah, that will be a fun one to keep track of. I do want to note, because we brought it up last weekend, the biggest little game, Williams and Amherst. Unfortunately, the Eafs lost to Amherst on the road, 21-14 on Saturday. We send our condolences to Kim and whatever other Eafs might be listening to the show. And that's a good jumping off point to rivalries. I'm not going to. I want to be able to concentrate on the football next week. I want to make sure you guys understand what the 10-year war was, and how this game, how Ohio State and Michigan is going to fit into that sort of intensity this year. The 10-year war was the 10-year period where Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler were the head coaches at Ohio State and Michigan, and facing each other. Bo was a Woody protege. He learned coaching from Woody. He was on Woody's staff at Ohio State for several years. If you recall the HBO special about the rivalry from a few years back. Well, that's more than 10 years back now. Bo has several of the gold pants medallions for being in Ohio State, being in the Ohio State football team, and beating Michigan. The level of animosity and paranoia that happened during that time, because the rivalry was so intense. And Bo came out the winner, but with the 10-year record, Bo won 5, Woody won 4, and there was one tie. And the tie was sort of ended up in favor of Ohio State because the conference voted to send Ohio State to the Rose Bowl, primarily because Dennis Franklin, Michigan's quarterback, was injured, and they thought that Ohio State would have a better chance of winning. So I missed something. The touchdown has come off the board for Buffalo, and it's now 23-10, and I'm confused. Anyway, this game, and of course the conspiracy theories in Ann Arbor and among Michigan fans and alumni are all pointing directly at Ryan Day and Ohio State. Ryan is obviously feeling pressure. He has lost to Michigan twice in a row. He does not, as I mentioned, he does not want to lose a third. So this game is going to have the kind of paranoia, intensity. It's going to be a throwback to those really, really old days. And we will see. Obviously, we will talk about this game next week. But it's going to be interesting. And I'm not looking ahead. I know Ohio State's got to beat Minnesota first. But yes, let's get through that. Be healthy, and everything will be great. Carla?
Yes, I have a fun anecdote I need to share with you, because you jumped ahead into rivalry week. I introduced some of my students this week who aren't necessarily college football fans to the glory that is the Land Grant Trophy. Mm-hmm. And they were just as befuddled by it as the rest of us are. So welcome to, we're very excited about rivalry week.
Yes, that's fantastic. I would not expect that Penn State's going to have a whole lot of trouble with Sparty this year. But again,
I wouldn't either.
That is a subject. That is a subject for next week. We have a lot of fun stuff this week.
We do.
And I'm going to enjoy every minute. Carla, thank you very much, as always.
Yep, thank you.
AJ, thanks to you for your rundown and your excitement over West Coast / After Dark football. Drew Powell, congratulations on your football career, and I hope you have. I hope you get the score. Go score a touchdown this weekend. That would be awesome.
Yes.
And to you guys, as always, thank you for watching, for listening, for reading, for doing all the things that you do for the show. We appreciate it. We're getting down to the really, really good stuff. And I hope you enjoy the games this weekend and come back next week, because we have a lot to talk about. Cheers, everybody. Have a great weekend. We will talk to you again soon. Cheers.